Okay. Yeah, we are live. So got the title card up. Um, let's see. What are we talking about today? I think it's common DevOps. We're going to be discussing current events and everything that what this like Discord sort of speaking potato um
Uh,
avatar like news host is gonna give us the news.
Before that, I wanted to give a quick update about what we were talking about yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, yes, the potato doesn't know anything about this.
Mhm.
um so yeah, so I can tell that we're looking at the one of the tests from terminal bench that we were talking about a lot in terms of the model needs to figure out what the rules are and predict what the end state is supposed to be. So yeah, what's happened with that in the last day?
I made it even easier to see and understand. I wanted to ask you if there was like something related to the human brain that has a mechanism to kind of spot this stuff faster. So we were all kind of struggling looking at the input before and after left to right, but check this out. So with the just the overlay, I feel like it's a lot easier to see and like understand what's happening. What do you think about that?
Well, when you say overlay, you mean like the grid that you've added on, or
Oh,
uh
so it's an animation now. So it's like here's the before and after. So you can see, whoa. Uh,
I see.
um, to me, this makes it a lot clearer about what it's actually doing, what the pattern is.
Totally. Yeah. For us as humans to figure it out. And I mean, the original intro or input is like JSON, right? Like the computer is not receiving images, or the model's not receiving these pictures. Am I right that you made these for us to be able to just like interpret it better?
Correct. So it gets a matrix of numbers in JSON format, which is essentially just a like a list of numbers with a comma in between it. One thing that's kind of interesting, I didn't realize yesterday, these aren't perfect squares, and I think that is on purpose to kind of make it harder for LLMs.
Huh. Yeah. No, I can see what's going on there. Is the the grid lines are not, they don't evenly divide nicely into the pixel height of the image, and so it's essentially it's just aliasing some of those horizontal lines out of existence. Actually, vertical lines too.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, yeah,
Thought,
cool
thought we would mess
benchmark.
it up.
We we're talking about this and kind of criticizing some benchmarks or kind of analyzing like the weaknesses, but I just want to point out that this is better than opinion. These people are cool. Like what they're doing is cool. So we're not just criticizing, we're helping out, right? So I do
Yeah.
code reviews, submitting issues. The guy that wrote this, his name is Kevin. So yeah, yesterday, actually, after we did the live stream, I got a message from him, and he said that they did an update and they added that alternative solution to the benchmark. So
Nice,
uh,
nice.
we are making
um
the world better.
yeah, exactly. Through constructive criticism. Um, so is it still taking the input as JSON, or has it been changed to take the input as like a PNG or something?
It's everything's the same. It just gave it an alternative solution as an answer.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so then that makes sense to me in terms of oh, how did it go? That was a good stream. Let's say that. That makes sense to me in terms of um, like there in computer science, like there are there are a couple of different ways that you can kind of do pathfinding algorithms on grids, and just one of the the very first kind of decisions is, does your little agent get to go up, down, left, right, or can it also go diagonally? And it's an arbitrary choice. I don't think there's actually a right answer as far as this puzzle is concerned, but it does mean that if you take the one rule set and you say, yeah, the dot can only go like up, down, left, right, then that implies one answer. And then if you do, it could go diagonal, it implies the other answer. And I don't think it's constrained in that way. I think it's open to interpretation as far as the current question goes. I don't know that it necessarily matters because I'm not sure that there's a really strong theory for discriminating like models that use one movement paradigm versus the other. Like I think that's actually like trivial
That's
kind
it.
of.
It I don't know because in some of the trajectory runs that we didn't cover yesterday, I used the analogy, and
Mhm. Yeah.
we saw that there was the ball analogy in some of the runs. I also
Hmm.
saw a gravity analogy,
Hmm.
and another that was related to tubes. Um,
Huh.
and so if it can only do like the staircase, then maybe it switches from the ball analogy to something else.
So yeah, I realize I've been using an analogy also, and that I never described, which is I've been thinking of this as a dungeon crawler, roguelike, where it's like an overhead view of a map, and you are the dot, and then you can go like and the question is like how which directional choices are available to you in this like dungeon, and so I'm imagining that I'm like the dot, and so that's where I'm kind of like, well, the dot can go up, down, left, right, or it can also go diagonal, and I just kind of see those as maps basically. um, but yeah, I think actually, as you mention it, whichever model you use is really going to constrain what kind of valid outputs there are. Like, if you do use a gravity model, and I guess it implies that like up is high and down is low, that's going to specify a totally different outcome that could possibly not be incorrect, according to that model. So in my mind, I've always been thinking about it as like a dungeon kind of game, and the dot just moves around. But I suppose that's open to interpretation. Once again, it's so open ended. It's pretty hard to specify like that's a correct answer, that's an incorrect answer. Um, and I think the fact that there are so many different models, it's a ball rolling, it's gravity, it's an avatar in a dungeon crawler. Uh, I would say it doesn't directly point to a single correct answer. And maybe it doesn't even point to two correct answers. Although I do think it's better after you submitted that poll request. Yeah.
Yeah, I still think it's pretty cool to see like the idea that it kind of just it makes it a lot easier for me to at least understand how these LLMs are working and thinking, and the visual aspects is something that's helpful for me. So some
Yeah.
of the other benchmarks are really tough. You were talking about the thinking loops. There's actually a
Hmm.
really good one if we want to just kind of skip to that before talking about the security incidents.
Let's do it, man.
Okay, let me find it. Oh,
Yeah, I'm experimenting with a few live streaming tricks here to try to get us a little more zoomed in on the screen share and everything. So yeah, I see the introducing Harbor Index. Yeah, so this is the subset where they're like, we're gonna take the best items and
yeah,
oh, you're
I
yeah, yeah.
misspoke. I'm sorry. I misspoke yesterday. To call this a terminal bench is incorrect. It's actually pulling from multiple different benchmarks. So
Got it.
it's an aggregate of their favorite cherry-picked tasks.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so there was one related to COVID. And again, this is kind of like one of those weird. Is it is it a good benchmark or not?
Hmm.
So I I don't understand this. Ian, maybe you can explain it to me, but it's basically a statistical model needs to be chosen for it to get the correct answer, and pretty much all of the LLMs default to like a T student or something like that. Well, there's like different models based on like if it's normalized or not. Can you explain
Yeah.
that to me? I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, like just right at the outset, it's kind of describing properties of the kind of data that it's going to be doing reasoning about. So the ordinal aspect is it goes up by one at a time. So what they're saying is what is ordinal is the number of times a healthcare worker has interacted with patients. And so then, and logistic regression is just kind of like a one or zero output. And that's different from, well, I don't know, for very like subtle reasons. And so basically it's like adjusting for the number of um, patients seen. And then I think the expected outcome is basically one or zero based on like is it good or bad, possibly, or possibly the outcome is like they're scoring the patient like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of how well.
Well, we
But
can check the actual answer here. But in
yeah,
a long story short, there's specialized knowledge that like a domain expert would have, and they didn't like spell out which model to use. So if it in the instructions it actually had like use this model, it would have gotten the answer correct. Um,
well, I mean, it kind
so,
of does. Like, it does say ordinal logistic regression model, and that is pretty descriptive. The only place where I'm getting hung up is that just I would next step is I would look at the raw data and start working backwards from that. And I would assume that a language model, once it saw some of the raw data, um, I would expect it to be able to put like two and two together because it did spell out exactly the regression. Um, but then the likelihood that it's been trained on this type of subtlety, I guess, is sufficiently low. That so you were saying like basically like any of these stats environments. So there's a lot you can do in Python, but R is the main one. There are a billion different flags, and it sounds like you were saying that it's just always going with the default. Um, and the default is a sensible default, but experts are gonna um, apply a whole bunch of extra criteria that maybe are not even really spelled out in a good way that a language model could be trained on. Um, so no, so it's telling it exactly which model to use, and I think it's just going with all the defaults. It's is my read on that, but
um,
that the defaults are not
yeah,
appropriate.
I guess so. Right, and it was like a specific tool. I don't know if it was R, but it was something like that where
Yeah,
they all installed the same kind of tool to do the stats. And if you didn't have like set this one flag, it would have just defaulted to this one model.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the
yeah.
trajectories are not being shown right now, but it kind of tells you through the agent rollout, like more complicated details I don't understand. I don't know what's going on here. Um, but let's check out DeepSeek. This one, so it's looking for this like answer right here. Also kind of interesting in this. I do have the raw logs from last week, but
Hmm.
it's given a range, so the answer isn't exactly like 0.75. It can
Hmm.
like some have floats that are decimal points that go 8 lengths or
Yeah,
16. So
yeah.
also kind of a different qualitative answer, I guess, is the
Mm-hmm.
correct terminology. Where even if one passes, one might actually be a little bit qualitatively better if it's more precise.
Yeah, yeah, and depending, now I don't think it's going to be relevant for this like specific test, but in stats, a lot of stuff that's based on generating distributions, basically like a lot of the outcomes are not deterministic. And actually that's part of uh, the challenge, I guess, of not running the tests like the wrong way. Um, since since the outcomes are not always deterministic, part of the deal with like null hypothesis significance testing and not running these tests gratuitously uh, has to do with, I mean, actually, like, you kind of destroy. Um, if you run tests like repeatedly, um, how to put it? Running tests repeatedly increases the likelihood that you're gonna get like a whole distribution of responses, and a lot of the testing. So this one in particular, this like regression, it is gonna end up as like a one or a zero. Is it significant or not significant? And if you run the same test repeatedly, sometimes it'll be significant, sometimes it'll be insignificant. And for certain tests, it's stochastic like that. And so you can't run them repeatedly. Uh, it destroys the concept of are you observing a rare event or not. Um,
Can you
and
give
so
me a
actually
good
that relates
example of that?
back. What's that?
Oh, can you give me a good example of that?
Um, well, yeah. So a good example would be I have a statistical model. I have some raw data. The data aren't going to change, but maybe when you tweak the model a little bit, uh, it does change the results a little bit. And so one of the abuses of statistics would be to like fit the model to the data. And this is one way of like running a whole bunch of different tests on the same data. Um, and if you don't, disclose that you actually tested like everything, if you don't go in with a strong hypothesis and like a delineated model ahead of time, nobody's really going to know if post hoc you just dreamt it up, you just did a brute force, like you just fitted the model. Um, and so that's not exactly relevant, I wouldn't say, in the case of the well, now it is somewhat
You know
relevant
what?
in the case of these
It's
tests.
relevant
Yeah.
to the. It's actually relevant to the conversation we were supposed to start with because
Solid.
I've seen. I think it was OpenAI or Anthropic. One of them. They have these reports that they list like, hey, here are some weird issues that happened, and a good one is, um, it's trying to pass tests, and it'll keep on like basically changing the stats model or whatever the test is to get that pass when it's like a bit dishonest in a lot of ways. It's like I think actually in one of these presentations I have um, an image about it. Yeah, the fake improvement. Here we go. Let's blow this up.
Oh, here. Yeah, let me switch to the. Yes, yes, yes. Hang on. Huh.
So it's similar kind of thinking. I kind of brought this up in our chess experiment video that we have on Common DevOps, where at least in software development, if you're like, there's the idea of automated tests. It's using
Mm-hmm.
the food analogy from yesterday. It's kind of like the FDA. We're like, we're gonna like inspect our our product and make sure that there's a quality level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when AI is generating these tests, they will do things that are like shortcuts. It's not like a real test. It's just like trying to get that green check mark so that it can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be so like just brute forcing to get a specific outcome in the context of science. When a human does that, um, they're well, okay. The most basic term is that it's a form of dishonesty, but there are terms like hacking the p value, the probability value. P hacking would be one of the big concerns in um, scientific reproducibility of results. So, if you brute forced this, or if a language model just enumerated, just threw some rules out the window and enumerated through a bunch of models and fit the models to the data and all of that, then one way you'll know it down the road is that um, it will not be reproducible because the model wasn't theoretically derived. It was derived from the data, and there's not really a strong reason for that model to predict the next set of data. So when somebody tries to reproduce that result, it's not going to work. And what should work is that you fit this same model as you did previously to the new data, and now the p value is not significant, implying that there's nothing special, no special relationship between the model and the data. And when people do it, like I was saying, it's dishonest. It's essentially a human doing exactly what you're showing the language model doing, of changing the test. It's in stats, you even literally call it a statistical test. It's really very similar to the slide you just shared with the fake improvement. Um, you can do that exact same thing in science, and it's not honest. It's a fake improvement, but it's actually part of. I think one thing that's a little bit weird here is how the the language models, like these tests, are kind of run almost in parallel universes that are not our own timeline necessarily. Because imagine you run the same language model testing a single terminal bench test, but you run it 16 times in parallel. Um, Statistically, that's weird to think about, running all these tests in parallel, and it is equivalent to the problem I'm talking about, where you're fitting the model to the data. You're not testing the actual model. Um, and one of the things about stats is it's kind of an assumption that there's really only one timeline and there's really only one universe. And if you run the test inside this universe, like the timeline that we're in, and you don't run additional tests, um, it's like you're sampling a property of the universe. And if you run the test repeatedly, you're violating one of the assumptions of the statistical test in the first place. And like the the likelihood that you get something that is like statistically significant is entirely predicated on the fact that we have one timeline. We don't have parallel universes. Like, we're not running the same test in parallel. And these language models running through these benchmarks are essentially running in little microcosm kind of parallel universes, where the timeline starts over from t=0 for each new run of the language model. And so it does mess with a lot of the underlying assumptions of statistics and like this like single universe principle. This is not something that people have. I didn't learn about this. I'm just kind of riffing on this right now, but it's just one reason why a range for the outcome of that statistical test, like 0.74 to 0.78 or whatever, it still kind of makes sense because it's not deterministic in that exact way. And we're also making the assumption that the terminal bench or the BIX or whatever is going to be run repeatedly, and that's not something that humans can do because it violates an assumption of the test. And so anyway, I mean, it's interesting what you highlight, and the range makes sense to me essentially. That 0.74. I'm switching back to
I
the
feel like
screenshot.
uh, it's a it's it's a conversation I want to have with you in more depth. I think that we should maybe live stream like, hey, we're going to design our own benchmark,
Word.
because this is a test that kind of illustrates that there are differences in compared to the chess one that just has like D5 as the answer. You know, there's one right answer.
Yeah.
In some of the other benchmarks, it's like, okay, this one's actually a little bit better, but it does pass, and this
Yeah.
one's a little bit faster or cheaper. So there are different reasons to use a different model, and the best, most expensive model might not actually be the best for your use case. I think a really
Definitely.
good example is like you and I both run GPT OSS 120B locally, and that's also like beats frontier models when it comes to safety. So if you're doing something for kids, like a kids app, it like will refuse to do certain things
Hmm.
that the frontier models will do. You know, if you
That's
like
a good point.
start
Yeah.
asking, um, and so that's also kind of why like some people were complaining about Opus 4.8 being a little bit worse because for what it's more safe in certain cases, and it was like refusing to do things that 4.7 would do.
Right. Right. No, no, that's actually a really good point. The models are not the same. Uh, I find, kind of to your point, that GPT OSS 120 is extremely lawful. You know, it really follows. Um, it follows commands and it refuses a lot. I was mentioning yesterday, Gemma 4 is lawful in a similar way, but it doesn't refuse as much. What I find is that it just is it it follows instructions maybe to a bit of a fault, where like it'll try to do what you ask it to do, and if it's unable, it just stops. Which is really frustrating in an agentic harness where, and same with GPT OSS 120. Like when it refuses, it just stops, and that's well, that doesn't really work great for the kinds of uses like for agents we've been doing experimenting with in the last few weeks. But yeah, right, for like a kids kind of thing where the refusals are actually a feature. Um, well, that's actually a kind of interesting and compelling reason to choose, even though it's an old model by now. Um, it has that property, that characteristic. It's kind of qualitative. I'm sure there's a way to quantify it,
Yeah,
but it's a feel, you know.
there.
And the refusal is
The reason
useful. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I I can't remember. I'll find it some other time, but there is some sort of benchmark that actually does test that, and
Oh yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where
A refusal benchmark, or
yeah,
there's one for refusals I know, but there are also ones for safety. Um,
I I think that's where I saw GPT being like number one above like frontier models, and I was really shocked by that.
I could
um,
see that honestly.
we'll have to check that benchmark, and then on the flip side, the other benchmarks that we've been looking at, I did drop in our Discord community the exploit gym like research paper like a
Yeah,
month or two ago, and now that's being used a lot. And um, yeah, our gangster Hermes tech reporter kind of uh, told us about Hugging Ace hack. Ian dropped some actual article so that we could look at it
yeah.
for ourselves last night.
But okay,
Um,
well, all right. So this is the potato head thing. Are you ready to pull the trigger on this guy?
I don't know if you can actually hear it because I tried. I was playing with it earlier. I don't know if it'll play through Discord, but I'm gonna upload this
Got
to
it.
our YouTube channel, so you can watch it yourself later. But
Solid, solid. Well, here, try it. Try it. I'll tell you if I hear anything because it is pretty hilarious. And if it doesn't work, so be it.
Yo,
But
here is your tech news and San
Play now.
Francisco weather for
I hear
Wednesday,
it.
July 22, 2026. Let's run it down. Story 1. OpenAI says its AI models acted on its own in an unprecedented hack. Story 2. AI companies are buying tons of old books because they're free of AI slop. Story 3. Judge approves $1.5 billion Anthropic settlement over pirated books used to train law. Story 4. Firefox 153 release. Now, some San Francisco business and tech news top 3. Local 1. Shuttered San Francisco Arts School will become college codenamed for NVIDIA founder Jensen Huang.
Oh man.
Local 2. San Francisco proposal would let small businesses unionize to negotiate rents with landlords. Local 3. Meet Joe, Buttercup, and Gary, San Francisco's smallest goat landscaping business. Now your San Francisco weather.
Amazing.
Right now, overcast. In July
Amazing.
2000. Yo, here is your top
Yo.
tech news for today. AI
Yo,
and
yo.
cyber.
sorry.
No, dude,
yeah, it's a little.
that's fantastic. That is absolutely amazing. First of all, it's just at the outset, that is the potato thing I was referring to. But dude, I
Yeah.
love it.
I did have a follow up with our professor Hermes give kind of like a different version, like a presentation on it, but
Nice.
it's using a different model. You know, we've been flipping out the brains of our Hermes agent.
Yeah.
So I feel like a couple, like 2 or 3 experiments ago, it was much better. But yeah, you could.
Well,
take a
so
look here.
before you play, how recently did you generate this one? Like an hour ago?
Last night, I want to say.
Okay. Then yes. So then this is developed with a much smaller model. Yeah, I'm actually going to be interested. So give me like 10 seconds here. So this model is Cohere's coder model, and it is tuned for agentic sort of, tool calling basically, but it's not a very big model. It's not a very smart model in terms of world knowledge. So off the top of my head, I think it's about 150 billion parameters, and I think it's a mixture of experts. So it's going faster at the expense of having like broad knowledge. And then contrast that. Last week we were running Hermes on 10 cent high 3 hy3. That's like it's more than a trillion parameters. It might be like 1.5 trillion, and so that's in the same league as like Opus 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, maybe somewhere in there. And so then like going back to this Cohere model, it's going to be good for actually calling the tools, but it's not as good about reasoning which tool to call and world knowledge about like what is San Francisco, what is goat farming, all that stuff. It's going to lack in that regard, and I think it's a little tuned for coding, even like writing source code. So we went from a really, really robust model, high 3, to really like an agent driver model, and it doesn't have any of the same real world knowledge. And so if you did this last night, it might be a bit lobotomized. Incidentally, I did switch the model earlier today. I think we're trying to run now. I know what I said about NVIDIA's Nematron models. I think we're trying to run the biggest Nematron that is currently available for free on OpenRouter. And I believe it's in the area of 500 or 600 billion parameters.
Sweet.
Smart, not super smart. But anyway, all right. Having said that.
Yeah. No. It's so I'm really glad that you told me all of that, because it definitely validates my experience with it, because as soon as it like we set up this like automatic like switching the brain if you're about to cost money to a different cheaper one, and so during this flip i I noticed a few things right away. Getting back to the refusal stuff,
Hmm.
it would ask, so we have things in place like ask me for approval if you're going to do file deletion, things like that, sensitive stuff, and I would deny it, and it would then come up with a like a different solution, or try and keep on working last week, whereas now it just like stops working, and then I have to go back and then ask it to do something again, which is so annoying when I have stuff to do and it's just like constantly nagging me, or it like stops working.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is it's also related to I was doing a rundown of Hermes a few weeks ago where it can ask for permission to run certain commands, and if it always is asking for permission, then it slows you down. It's not safe to grant permission to just run whatever it wants, uh, you know, but when it stops, I mean, like, I have worked with humans who do that. And uh, it's really annoying when there's a person who's kind of like, if you've ever had the experience of training someone, and at some point they're like, oh, I didn't know what the next step was, so I just stopped and I didn't do anything all afternoon. And I'm like, I'm what? Like, uh, uh, so you just did nothing because you had no idea what to do. We wasted a whole afternoon. You know, that is so frustrating when a human does that. And so then when agents do it, it's the same. It's the exact same frustration and the same feelings that I have about like people that have done this kind of like almost like refusal.
Yeah,
It's not work anymore. It's work to manage the
that's exactly it. And I
yeah.
think something, the reason that the Javier and I and Ina have really started talking a lot is just like working in teams, and there's like certain kind of like procedures that are done in enterprise software that uh, kind of highlights or illustrates how to work with these things in certain ways, like the whole idea of a sprint and like a sprint review.
Hmm.
It's accelerated, but it's still valuable. People say that Agile and Scrum is dead, but maybe it's evolving in certain ways, and the bottlenecks are different. But
Yeah, no. I
um,
think that's a big part of it is like the bottlenecks are synchronized with the cadence. The idea of the sprint, like imagine that in the middle of the sprint somebody stops, and then it's like, no, that wasn't the point. But if the cadence is such that the stopping points are synced up with when everybody's going to do the meetings and troubleshoot things together, then it all makes sense. But a language model stopping in the middle of doing some work is basically like a, a person stopping in the middle of a sprint and doing nothing about it, just like waiting for like 10 days for the end of the sprint and being like, oh yeah, I ran into a problem on day 2, and I didn't know what to do about it, so I just did nothing for the last 2 weeks, because I knew
well,
we would talk
so
about it anyway. It's
I,
like, no.
uh, there would be a daily stand up where you say what you did yesterday, what you're doing today, what blocked you, if you need help. That kind of idea I like a lot, because it allows like the ability to focus on one thing and ignore everything else until the next day. But it's
Hmm.
a lot harder to kind of figure out here. So, um,
Yep.
yeah, we're trying to attempt that in certain ways, but and a lot of people are thinking about this. It's not just us, but um, I'm gonna have to run here in a minute. I do want to talk about this stuff though, so maybe I'll skip the video and just like if you see Ian, do you want to
In
talk?
July 2000, here is your top tech
Hold
news
on.
for today. AI and cyber. Let's run it down. Story 1. Cyber.
Yo, yeah, no, I
Sorry,
mean, like,
it auto plays when I full screen.
no,
But
no, no,
yeah,
it's hilarious actually. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun to develop that over time. I know like the really big thing, and yeah, I see. Oh man, it's in our time zone it's 5:20. So yeah, we do have to wrap it down. But the really big thing, just the juicy news from the last day or so had to do with OpenAI hacking Hugging Face, finding a 0 day in their own sandbox, chaining that 0 day, moving laterally through the systems to break out of the sandbox until they got like an open internet connection, then used that to simply benchmax the which benchmark was it? It was a security related benchmark, wasn't it?
yeah,
Like
it was the one that I posted a while ago. It's fairly
yeah,
new. It's called Exploit Gym.
right, exploit
And
gym. Yep.
uh, yeah, this isn't the first. They're calling this like the first warning shot. I saw that in the news, or the first time this has ever happened. It's not, by the way.
Yeah.
Like Anthropic had their sandbox, autonomous thing that broke out and then was like contacting the security researcher eating lunch. Like
Right.
before that, Google's had incidences. Like actually had that here. I thought this is one of the earlier ones that I saw. Oh, actually, it was Anthropic, but you can see that it was like mid 2025.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe autonomous, but there are these kind of concepts that have already happened. Even with our Hermes agent, I saw it like trying. So one of the more interesting parts of this is I think it broke into Hugging Face and poisoned a data set to run instructions with like a prompt injection, and might have even like tried to train like a model. Like I'm not totally sure about that part but I have seen our own Hermes bot try and like do voice enhancements by like downloading models and stuff and like almost trying to train a new one. So there's this idea that there's the post benchmark where you have one smart model training a lower end model.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally wild concept, right?
Yeah. 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 Another thing that reminds me of is the notion that one model can be relied upon to assess the alignment of another model. So for the purposes of safety, and frankly, this is actually a whole different can of worms. So maybe I'll just drop this and we can come back to it. But basically, like, let's talk about Fable. The premise is that Opus 4.8 or whatever would have been used to assess the alignment of Fable, but Fable is smarter than Opus 4.8. And so this kind of scaffolding approach to using models to judge other models, and in particular using less capable models to assess more capable models, strikes me as being, in terms of inference, it's backwards. This is not going to work
Well,
to assure safety.
there's also the concept that if you have what is it, LLM as a judge, I think is the term. If you're using the same like brand, so to speak, it has a bias towards your like particular model class. So
Interesting.
some of
I could
these
see that.
researchers, and this has been shown, like you use like some like terminal benchmark where you're running through every single model, but you have like OpenAI as the judge. It will like make its own models appear better in the benchmarks or like favor it.
Yeah. That makes
So
sense.
the concept that you have like maybe a mixture of model experts as like the review board, so to speak. I think the chess one is when we're talking about Harbor. It has Fire is an LLM. Also in the task creation, I've seen AI generated code for sure.
Yeah.
And then in the CI/CD pipeline, you have security scans and automated tests that are like old-fashioned kind of traditional software, and then there, like in the second pass, there is another LLM that's doing like a verification of the quality of the test, and then you have the chess example where it's like part of the test is to go install a chess engine that is both a combination of a neural network and old-fashioned search and sort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to assume and trust that the answer that it gives us is the best one and that's the correct answer. It's
Right.
like totally wild, right?
Yeah, that's a complete mess. I mean, one analogy would be if you're a human and you sit down to take a driver's exam, and it's got some questions about like what are the rules, and you say, well, you know what, actually my dad is just gonna answer all this for me. I'm just gonna be here, and like I'm just gonna pull in someone else, and then when it comes to driving, I'm also not gonna drive. I'm gonna have someone else
Well,
sit in, and it's like, and I'm
it's
good.
autonomous.
I'm good. Yeah, it's
You
autonomous.
got your,
So that's a bad test. Is if you're allowed to do that, that again is violating some of these assumptions. Like, what
I,
are you testing? Are you testing? Well, okay, we're testing um, my organization. I have someone who answers the questions. I have another entity that drives for me. I get the
yeah,
license. I sign, but you're testing the amalgamation of me, my organization, and my collective ability to say that stop sign. Got to stop at that stop
dude.
sign altogether.
Um, what was it? I mean, do you think they have driver's tests for the self-driving cars? Like they should, right? Because uh,
Wow. Mm.
remember this? So
Dude,
during
oh my
our
gosh,
test,
is there a benchmark for self-driving cars?
we'll have to find out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I thought we found, so if you look at the timestamps of our chess benchmarking stuff that we did on our YouTube,
Hmm.
it was running during this, and I kind of called out how Opus didn't seem like the best quality, even though it's the most expensive. It's like 15
Yeah,
times more expensive to.
yeah.
Um, and then they came out and were like, "Oh yeah, we were like messing around with the settings behind the scene." So even if you do these benchmarks, the frontier models can change based on like what they're doing behind the scenes, the new training data, the new like whatever web search it's doing might get new data, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, or I mean, just a really simple so when you run models locally, you've got access to a ton of parameters, and you could even run the exact same model, but quantize it differently. You can quantize just certain aspects of the model differently, not even changing the model, changing the execution of the model. Um, in Llama CPP, during generation, there's this key value cache. And that's one of the things that you can configure to get different performance. And as you do, you trade speed for quality. And this is something that you knowingly do when you run the model locally, but we have no idea what is running behind the scenes of OpenRouter or OpenAI or Anthropic. And I've suspected for a while that some of the advancement in these new iterations of models is not strictly in getting them to be smarter, so to speak, but in getting them to be more performant. Maybe matching a level of intelligence, whatever that is, but using fewer resources in the process. And so I'm constantly tweaking these things myself behind the scenes, making it dumber, making it smarter. But the model is fundamentally like it's Quen 3.6. It's still Gemma 4. It's DeepSeek V4, but you know, it can be smarter, it can be faster, it can be all these things, and you have, and in all likelihood, there's not a single parameter set at Anthropic. Uh, you're connecting to a Kubernetes cluster. Like I don't know exactly what they're scaling with, but in all likelihood, it's a heterogeneous environment with different GPUs, different levels of system RAM, and different parameters. So it could even just be like
Yeah.
which node did you connect to on the back end that generated your tokens, you know?
I feel like that's another thing that we didn't really discuss in detail yesterday, but kind of a follow up with the whole idea with the internet access. If it's looking doing a web search and the website you're looking at times out, and it's
Mm-hmm.
their fault or it's slow, that will affect the runs too, right?
100%. That's a great
Um,
example.
I I would love to go through all of these settings with you because Ian, you are an absolute expert in here. He's talked so much about this. Gosh. There's the whole idea of preserved thinking that we were talking about before too.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff is interesting and can totally affect how things run. I I believe with the Anthropic bug in April that they were talking about, it was related to the temperature. Um, if you want to explain
Uh-huh.
that real quick, I think that would be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. No, actually, man, temperature is a really interesting aspect. So this relates to the stochastic nature of like it's almost analogous to running these statistical tests repeatedly. So temperature is kind of like how random um, is the well, so I mean, really, what it is how random is the spike, the activation of each of these individual neurons. You can throw noise into the system. Um, it's actually based on a concept of stochastic annealing. What that is is like if you think about metal. Um, no, this is too complex. Let me just be simpler. No. This is good. Temperature. Okay, so imagine that you have a sword, and you change the temperature of the sword very rapidly by dunking it in water after putting it in a fire or whatever. Okay, so that's a form of annealing. That's actually quenching. It's reducing the temperature dramatically. And what you're doing at a certain level with all of that is you're changing the amount of motion of the atoms. And when you rapidly change that motion, it crystallizes in whatever form it is. That's contrasted with annealing, which is where you lower the temperature slowly and you allow the molecules to settle slowly. And when the temperature is high, everything's bouncing around. That's what heat is actually, is the movement of atoms, the movement of molecules. Um, the more they bounce around, the hotter the temperature. It's just a physical property. And that exact same property, that exact same idea of temperature maps onto neural nets in terms of how chaotic is the system. When the temperature is high, it's analogous to the molecules moving around quickly. When the temperature is high, what it means is there's a lot of variability in the activation of the individual neurons in the neural network. And when the temperature is low, there's less variability. That's interesting when the temperature is 0, because then there's no variability and it is actually at that point completely reproducible. So that's actually an important test case for when you run it locally to set the temperature at 0.
At
But
0, and then
what are we
gonna
looking at here?
ask it?
What? Yeah.
It's LM Studio. I just set the temperature to 0. I want to ask it like, tell me a joke. Let's see.
Yeah.
Is that a good test? I don't know. Like, tell me the capital of Paris or
Yeah, no. I mean,
of France.
it should be good. It's super open ended. Uh, unless there's something weird going on with a different parameter, I would expect. And this is a good test. Let's try it. Let's. I see temperature is
Uh,
0. Um. Oh my gosh. All right. I mean, that's a joke. That's definitely a joke. Why
Did you see the other ideas?
Ha, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
Okay,
this
so
is a
now
good
if I ask it
test.
again.
Oh, no, not in the same session though. Make a new session,
Mm, okay.
because now it has context.
Mhm.
And you got to say, tell me joke. Don't tell me a joke. Tell me joke. It has to be exactly the same.
Good
Oh,
point.
actually, this shouldn't matter. The capital T, I believe that that's going to be treated the same way. I don't think there's a different token for capital T tell versus lowercase t tell, but that'll be interesting. I mean, let's see.
Let's see if the intent changed. So intent request for a joke, intent request for a joke. Tone casual, straightforward English. No spot. Oh, so it did actually change here. It didn't say English.
It's a little different, but I do believe the joke is the same in the end. Yeah. Why did the
Yeah.
scarecrow win an award?
Okay, let's do a new one. We'll put it at 1.
Oh, dude, yeah, this is gonna be tripped out. Unless it's not, in which case, I think we're not testing exactly what we are hoping to test.
I mean, it did do a wordplay. This is new. As an option.
I do see the same impasta thing too. Huh.
Yeah. So it has a couple of the same things, but it
Yeah.
does have different ones.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. There are some differences.
And it came up with a different output.
Dude, yeah, completely different. They make up everything. Yeah. I've seen that joke before. So, yeah. So temperature relates to the unpredictability of the responses, and it'll be more random. But for a special test case, you can set the temperature to 0, and there are a lot of reasons why that's not like a good way to run a model. And if you check the model card for like Quen, for example, it suggests a temperature of like 0.6 or something like that.
Well,
Um,
I imagine
yeah.
it's you want a lower temperature for like coding probably, but like for creative writing, you'd want like a high one.
Yeah, that's exactly the intuition. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, in fact, oh god, we got to call this, but
Yeah.
we should look at the model card because they list different temperatures for different kinds of performance, code versus creative writing, and it's exactly your intuition.
Okay, man, I gotta go.
Dude,
I will
this
talk to you
has
later.
been awesome. This has been awesome. Go into the title card. All right, keep it real, man. This is a lot of fun. Let's stream again soon. Peace.